Ladies and gentlemen, how many times in your life have you wasted energy trying to convince people? Convince them to believe in you. Convince them to see your vision. Convince them that you're good enough, smart enough, capable enough. And what happens? Resistance, pushback, doubt, frustration. Because here's the truth: when you try to convince, you lose. You lose your power. You lose your energy. You hand over your emotional state to somebody else's opinion. So what do you do instead? You demonstrate, you embody, you live it. Stop talking about what you're going to do. Stop begging for approval. Stop needing someone to nod their head before you can take a step forward. You want to change people's minds, show them the results. You want to inspire belief, radiate certainty in your own actions. You want to lead. Then stop trying to pull people. Stand so strong that they can't help but follow. Listen, people don't remember the argument you made. They remember the energy you carried. They don't follow your words. They follow your example. So instead of convincing, become undeniable. Instead of persuading, become the proof. Instead of arguing, become the evidence that no one can ignore. Because when you are fully committed, when you are living in alignment with your vision, something shifts. People feel it. They see it. They can't deny it. And then you don't need to convince anybody. So my challenge to you today is this: stop wasting time trying to convince. Start investing time in becoming. Live so boldly, so passionately, so unapologetically that your life itself becomes the ultimate argument. And when that happens, when you stop seeking validation and start radiating conviction, something magical occurs. The right people join you, the right opportunities appear, and the resistance you used to fight against disappears. So don't try to convince others. Do this instead. Be the example. Be the proof. Be the undeniable force that makes belief inevitable. Convincing drains your power. Embodying multiplies it. When you spend your time, your energy, your focus trying to convince other people to believe in what you believe, you are placing your power in their hands. You are making your momentum dependent on their approval, and that is the fastest way to slow yourself down. Think about it. Every time you argue, every time you explain, every time you push harder for them to get it, you are leaking energy. That energy could be used to create, to build, to take action, to embody the very thing you're trying to talk about. Instead of flowing forward into your vision, it's being diverted into resistance, into frustration, into disappointment. Convincing is a game of chasing validation, and the more you chase, the more it runs away from you. When you embody, you shift the equation completely. Embodiment means you don't need permission, you don't need applause, you don't need someone to sign off on your dream. You step into the identity of the person who already has the result, and you operate from that space. It's not about what you tell people. It's about the way you carry yourself, the energy in your voice, the fire in your eyes, the consistency of your actions. People can argue with your words, but they cannot argue with your presence. They can dismiss your claims, but they cannot dismiss your demonstration. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they didn't spend much of their lives trying to convince anyone. They weren't begging others to believe in them. They were too busy living it, showing it, being it. And eventually the world had no choice but to take notice. That is the power of embodiment. It multiplies your influence because it bypasses resistance. Convincing lives in the head. Embodiment lives in the heart and gut. People feel it before they even process it logically. They sense it when you walk in the room. They know something is different, even if they can't articulate it. Convincing is rooted in lack. It says, I don't yet believe this enough myself, so I need you to agree with me so I can feel certain. Embodiment is rooted in abundance. It says, I already know who I am and where I'm going. Whether you agree or not is irrelevant because I am living proof. When you operate from that space, you are untouchable. No rejection can rattle you. No criticism can derail you. No disbelief can stop you. Because your certainty doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. And when people feel that level of inner certainty, they are naturally drawn in. They may not even like you at first, but they cannot ignore you. That magnetic pull is the multiplication of power that happens when you embody instead of convince. There's also a massive difference in speed. Convincing is slow. You might spend weeks, months, even years trying to win someone over with your explanations, your logic, your persuasion. And even then, their belief may not last. Embodiment is fast. One clear demonstration can do what 1,000 words never could. One bold action can speak louder than endless attempts to persuade. You accelerate because instead of waiting for approval, you're moving. And when you move, others can see the results in real time. They don't need convincing. They see it happening. Convincing is also exhausting. It drains your spirit because it puts you in a constant battle. You're fighting against doubt, fighting against resistance, fighting against skepticism. Embodiment energizes you. When you live your truth, when you align your actions with your vision, you're fueled by momentum. You don't have to push, you're pulled by something greater. That energy is contagious. It spreads. People feel more alive around someone who is fully embodied because it reminds them of what's possible for themselves. Convincing creates dependence. If you do manage to persuade someone, they're tied to your ability to keep convincing them. You'll always have to prove, argue, justify. Embodiment creates independence. People see your example and they decide for themselves whether to follow or not. If they choose to, they do it out of their own conviction, not because you talk them into it. That kind of buy-in is infinitely stronger because it comes from within them, not from pressure outside. Convincing puts you on the defensive. You're always responding, explaining, justifying. Embodiment puts you on the offensive. You're setting the tone, you're leading with energy, you're moving forward regardless of opposition. You're not reacting to their disbelief, you're showing them what belief looks like in action. That is a position of strength. That is where multiplication happens. There's a deeper layer here too. When you convince, you're tied to the outcome of whether they agree or not. Your emotional state rises and falls depending on their reaction. When you embody, your state is consistent. It's not dependent on anyone else's response. You don't lose momentum when someone doubts you because you're not chasing agreement in the first place. That consistency makes you unshakable. It gives you stamina over the long run, and in the long run, stamina beats almost everything else. Convincing makes you sound louder. Embodying makes you resonate deeper. Loud can be ignored, tuned out, dismissed. Resonance lingers. It sticks in people's minds. They replay it later. They can't shake the feeling you left them with. That's the difference between fleeting influence and lasting impact. At its core, convincing is about words. Embodying is about state. Convincing tries to control what others think. Embodying controls what you radiate. And people don't follow what you say nearly as much as they follow what you radiate. They're drawn to certainty, to clarity, to congruence. When you embody fully, your actions, your words, your energy all line up. Yeah. That alignment multiplies power because there are no leaks, no contradictions, no mixed signals. This is why some of the most persuasive people rarely argue. They don't need to. They know that their life speaks louder than any debate. They don't try to drag people along. They don't water down their vision to make it more palatable. They embody it so fully that those who are meant to join them will feel compelled to without needing to be convinced. Those who aren't meant to won't. And that's fine because embodiment doesn't seek universal agreement. It seeks authenticity. Convincing operates in scarcity. It assumes, if they don't believe me, I can't move forward. Embodiment operates in abundance. It declares, I will move forward regardless, and in doing so, I will attract those who are aligned. Scarcity drains, abundance multiplies. That's why convincing weakens and embodiment strengthens. Every time you embody instead of convince, you send a signal to yourself, I trust me. I trust my vision. I trust my capacity. That self-trust compounds. It builds confidence. It builds resilience. It builds the kind of inner certainty that makes external agreement unnecessary. And paradoxically, that's when agreement comes most easily. When you no longer need it, people don't follow words. They follow certainty and example. Words can inspire, yes, but words without the weight of certainty behind them collapse as quickly as they're spoken. Everyone has heard promises, speeches, declarations that sounded good in the moment, but faded the second the person who said them walked away. Words alone are fragile. They're easy to question, easy to ignore, easy to dismiss. But when words are backed by unwavering certainty, they land differently. They carry energy, conviction, and a presence that cannot be manufactured. Certainty transforms ordinary language into something that cuts through doubt and sticks in people's hearts. People don't follow the noise of words. They follow the vibration of certainty. They're drawn to someone who radiates alignment, someone who is so deeply connected to their truth that you can feel it before they even speak. Think of the times in your life when someone influenced you the most. Chances are, it wasn't just their words that moved you. It was the way they carried themselves, the way they stood, the way they looked you in the eye, the way their energy filled the room. That presence communicates more than words ever could. It says, I know where I'm going. I know who I am. I know this is possible. That level of certainty bypasses logic. It hits at a deeper level, the level where people decide if they trust, if they believe, if they want to follow. You can't convince someone into trust. You can only embody it so completely that they feel safe stepping into it with you. Certainty is magnetic. It draws people in, even if they don't fully understand why. When someone speaks with certainty, acts with certainty, moves with certainty, others want to be around them. not because of the specific words being used, but because of the energy that certainty creates. It feels solid. It feels unshakable. And in a world full of uncertainty, full of doubt, full of constant change, people are naturally pulled toward anyone who carries a sense of grounded assurance. They don't care as much about the details of what you say. They care about how much you believe in what you say. On the flip side, when someone speaks without certainty, even if their words are technically correct, it doesn't land. You can feel the hesitation in their voice, the doubt behind their eyes, the cracks in their energy. You can sense that they're trying to convince themselves as much as they're trying to convince others. And people pick up on that instantly. They might not consciously know why, but they'll feel the disconnect and they won't follow. That's the difference between a leader and a talker. Leaders embody certainty. Talkers string together words hoping someone will buy in, but certainty alone isn't enough. Certainty without example is hollow. You can declare your confidence all day, but if your actions don't match, it falls apart. Example is where certainty takes form. It's where belief becomes visible. People follow what they see, not what they hear. You can tell someone 1,000 times what's possible, but the moment you demonstrate it through action, they finally believe. One powerful example can ignite more belief than years of speeches. When you live your words, when your behavior reflects your message, you eliminate doubt because you've made it real. Example is evidence. It's proof. And proof silences resistance. People may argue with theory, but they can't argue with reality. They can question your vision, but they can't question your demonstration of it. They can disagree with your philosophy, but they can't disagree with the results you show them. This is why example multiplies influence. It doesn't just tell people where to go. It shows them that it's possible to get there. It paints the path, not in abstract concepts, but in lived experience. Think about how children learn. They don't learn because parents tell them what to do. They learn because they model what they see. Adults aren't much different. We may be older, but our brains still respond most powerfully to example. We trust it, we internalize it, we mirror it. When someone shows us through their life that something is achievable, something shifts inside us, we stop thinking, maybe that's not possible, and start thinking, if they can, maybe I can too. Words rarely create that shift alone. Example does. Certainty and example together create a force that's unstoppable. Certainty without example can sound arrogant. Example without certainty can look accidental, but when you combine them, when you speak with conviction and then live in alignment with what you've said, you become undeniable. People feel your energy, they see your proof, and suddenly belief is not something you ask for. It's something that arises naturally in them. They follow not because you told them to, but because they want to. That's authentic influence. The challenge most people face is they rely too heavily on words. They try to persuade, to argue, to explain. They think if they can just find the right phrase, the right sentence, the right pitch, then people will finally get it. But people don't get it from words. They get it from alignment. They follow the certainty you radiate, the consistency you demonstrate, the example you embody. That's what builds trust. That's what sustains influence. This is why you can meet someone who barely says anything, yet they inspire confidence the moment they enter a room. Their certainty is palpable. Their example speaks for them. And on the other hand, you can meet someone who talks endlessly, making big promises, using impressive words, but you feel nothing solid behind it. You sense the emptiness. And you walk away unmoved. Words alone don't lead. Certainty and example do. Certainty also creates clarity. When you are certain your words are sharper, simpler, more direct, you don't ramble. You don't over-explain. You say only what needs to be said because you don't feel the need to pad your message with fluff. People crave clarity. They're surrounded by noise, distractions, and half-truths. Certainty cuts through all of that and makes them pay attention. Then, when your example backs it up, their attention transforms into belief. The truth is, people are watching more than they're listening. They're observing how you move under pressure, how you handle setbacks, how you carry yourself when no one's clapping. They're testing whether your certainty is real or if it cracks under stress. They're looking for evidence that your words match your life. Every action is communication. Every choice either strengthens your example or weakens it. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be aligned. Imperfect alignment carries more power than perfect words ever could. And this is why some of the most influential leaders in history were not necessarily the most eloquent speakers. They didn't always use the fanciest words, but they embodied certainty and lived as examples. That combination created movements, shifted cultures, changed the world. Their certainty was unshakable and their example undeniable. That's what people followed. Stop persuading, become the living proof. Persuasion is rooted in the belief that if you talk long enough, argue hard enough, and build a strong enough case, people will finally shift their minds and follow your vision. But the problem is, persuasion always keeps the power outside of you. It assumes the other person has to be convinced before anything can move forward. It puts you in the position of needing their agreement, needing their validation, needing them to see things your way before you act. And that need becomes a cage. It slows your momentum. It drains your energy. And it makes your dream fragile because its survival depends on someone else's approval. When you choose to become the living proof, instead, everything changes. Living proof means you don't argue, you demonstrate. You don't try to pull people, you show them the results of being pulled by your own vision. You don't waste time trying to explain why it works. You become the example that it works. And that is infinitely more powerful than any speech, pitch, or persuasion tactic you could ever use. Because people can resist persuasion, but they can't resist proof. They can shut down your arguments, but they can't ignore the evidence of your life. Being the living proof means embodying the transformation you want others to believe in. If you want to convince people that discipline matters, you show them through your consistency. If you want them to believe in possibility, you demonstrate possibility by breaking through your own limits. If you want them to believe in leadership, you model leadership by stepping up when it's uncomfortable. You don't just say it, you live it. You don't just claim it, you show it. That's how you bypass resistance. You make the message undeniable not because you argue them into submission, but because your results, your presence, and your energy speak for themselves. The reality is that most people are tired of words. They've heard promises that weren't kept. They've heard pitches that were never backed by delivery. They've heard slogans that sounded good but led nowhere. Words alone have burned them, so their guard is up. That's why persuasion so often fails. It runs straight into the wall of skepticism. But proof breaks that wall down instantly. When someone sees with their own eyes what's possible, when they feel the undeniable energy of someone living it fully, skepticism doesn't stand a chance. Proof makes belief almost automatic. Think of it like this. If someone tells you they can teach you how to climb a mountain, but they've never climbed one themselves, you might listen politely, but you won't really believe. If another person doesn't waste time persuading you, but instead points to the mountain they just came down from, covered in dirt, sweat, and scars, you immediately believe. Their proof is stronger than any persuasion ever could be. That's the difference. Persuasion asks for belief. Proof demands it. Living proof also carries a frequency that words cannot match. When you are walking your talk, when your life is aligned with your message, people can feel it. It radiates from you in ways you can't fake. They notice it in your confidence, in the way you hold yourself, in the choices you make without hesitation. They see it in the consistency of your actions over time, not just in isolated moments. And that consistency builds trust. Trust is the foundation of influence, and trust is never built by persuasion alone. It's built by showing up again and again as the embodiment of what you preach. There's also a deep personal power that comes from being the living proof. When you stop focusing on persuading others and instead focus on becoming the embodiment of your message, you reclaim all the energy you used to waste in arguments and redirect it into action. Every ounce of effort goes into living your vision instead of debating it. That accelerates your growth. It builds momentum. It compounds your results. And soon, the gap between you and those still stuck in persuasion mode becomes so obvious that no words are needed. Your results speak louder than anything you could say. The truth is, people don't need another salesperson trying to talk them into something. They need an example. They need someone who shows them by their very existence that more is possible. They need proof that the path is real, that the results are attainable, that the vision is worth following. And when you give them that, you don't just change their mind. You expand their sense of what's possible for themselves. That is the highest form of influence. It doesn't just get people to agree with you, it elevates them into action. Living proof creates a ripple effect. When you embody your message fully, others see it and are inspired to do the same. They no longer need persuasion because they've witnessed the evidence in you. And when they step into their own embodiment, they become proof for someone else. That's how movements are built, not on persuasion, but on a chain reaction of people living as undeniable evidence. That's how change sustains itself. Persuasion is fragile because it's tied to words. Words can be misinterpreted, forgotten, or challenged. Proof is unshakable because it's tied to reality. Reality can't be denied. Proof doesn't need explanation. It doesn't need defense. It doesn't need embellishment. It simply is. And when people encounter undeniable reality, they don't need persuasion anymore. They adjust their beliefs to match what they see. Being the living proof also protects you from the trap of trying to control others. Persuasion is often about control. It's about bending someone else's perspective until it matches yours. But you don't control people into lasting change. At best, you pressure them into temporary compliance. At worst, you create resistance that pushes them even further away. Living proof, on the other hand, honors freedom. It allows people to see, to feel, and to decide for themselves. And because the choice is theirs, the belief is stronger and the commitment is deeper. It's important to understand that living proof isn't about perfection. You don't have to be flawless to embody your message. In fact, your imperfections make your proof even more compelling because they show that it's real, that it's human, that it's attainable. When people see you stumble but keep moving, when they see you fall but get back up, when they see you struggle but remain committed, that is living proof. That shows them that success isn't about never failing, it's about never quitting. That kind of proof inspires far more belief than polished persuasion ever could. Every great breakthrough in history was carried not by those who persuaded people with clever arguments, but by those who became living proof of their vision. Innovators who demonstrated possibility through their creations. Leaders who showed courage through their actions. Dreamers who turned their ideas into reality instead of just trying to sell them with words. They didn't need to persuade, they were the evidence. And because they were the evidence, the world followed. Alignment and conviction attract the right people effortlessly. Alignment is when your thoughts, your words, and your actions are all moving in the same direction. It is when who you are on the inside matches what you are doing on the outside. Conviction is the unwavering belief in that alignment, the fire that fuels it, the energy that keeps you standing even when obstacles rise. When those two forces come together, something powerful happens. You stop chasing people, you stop begging for approval, you stop forcing connections that don't fit. Instead, the right people begin to show up in your life almost like magnets pulled to steel. When you are out of alignment, everything feels forced. You say one thing but do another. You dream of one future but act in ways that sabotage it. You promise commitment but show up inconsistently. That lack of alignment creates confusion in your energy, and confusion repels. People sense it immediately. They might not articulate it, but they feel the disconnect, and when they feel it, trust erodes. Conviction without alignment is empty. It's shouting loudly about a path you're not really walking. People hear the noise but don't feel the resonance. They pull away because something doesn't add up. On the other side, alignment without conviction is fragile. You might be walking the right path, doing the right things, moving in the right direction, but without conviction, it lacks weight. People can't feel the strength behind it. They can't sense the certainty. You blend in, you hesitate, you move, but without momentum. And without that momentum, the right people can't find you because there's no signal strong enough to cut through the noise. Alignment points you in the right direction. Conviction gives you the volume that makes others pay attention. Together, they create a frequency so powerful it can't be ignored. People are naturally drawn to those who know who they are and live accordingly. When someone embodies alignment and conviction, their life communicates a clear message. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is where I am going. That clarity cuts through doubt and uncertainty. It acts like a beacon, and like a beacon, it doesn't chase ships. It simply shines, and the right ships navigate toward it. That's the effortless attraction that happens when alignment and conviction are present. You don't need to convince, persuade, or force. The right people recognize themselves in your clarity and come closer. The wrong people recognize they don't fit and drift away. Both outcomes are wins because both outcomes refine your path. Consider how many people waste years trying to fit in with the wrong crowds, the wrong teams, the wrong audiences. They bend their message, water down their truth, compromise their values, all to keep people around who were never meant to walk with them in the first place. That constant bending pulls them out of alignment. And when they are out of alignment, no amount of persuasion can hold the group together. It always fractures eventually because relationships built on misalignment are temporary. Conviction without alignment often pushes away those who were supposed to be there while attracting those who were never meant to stay. But when you align fully and stand in that alignment with conviction, the dynamic flips. You no longer try to hold on to people by shrinking yourself. You stop manipulating circumstances to keep others comfortable. Instead, you step into your true path, and as you do, the people who belong on that path recognize it immediately. They feel it in your presence. They resonate with your certainty. They trust you because your words and actions match, and because you radiate belief in your own journey. That trust is the foundation of connection. And connection built on alignment and conviction doesn't require constant maintenance. It flows. This effortless attraction is not magic. It is resonance. People are constantly scanning for energy that matches theirs, for examples that reinforce what they believe deep down or what they aspire to believe. When you show up aligned and convicted, you broadcast a frequency that speaks directly to those people. They don't need convincing because they feel it. They don't need persuasion because the resonance bypasses their mind and hits their core. They are drawn not because of clever words, but because something inside them says, this is it, this is right, this is where I belong. Alignment and conviction also filter out what is not for you. When you are crystal clear in who you are, you create an invisible boundary that keeps away the wrong opportunities and the wrong people. That's not rejection, it's protection. Without that clarity, you waste time chasing things that don't fit, saying yes to paths that drain you, surrounding yourself with people who don't actually support your growth. But with alignment and conviction, the wrong things fall away on their own. You don't need to push them out. They simply can't stick to your energy. That leaves space for the right people and opportunities to flow in. Think of alignment and conviction like a magnet. A weak magnet has to be pressed directly against metal to pick it up, and even then it struggles to hold on. A strong magnet doesn't chase or press. It pulls powerfully from a distance, and only the metals it's designed to attract will come. That's what happens when you stand in alignment and conviction. You become a strong magnet. You don't chase, you don't force, you don't cling, you attract, and what you attract is exactly what belongs. The effortless attraction of the right people also creates exponential momentum. One aligned connection can accelerate your journey more than 100 forced ones. When the right people join you, they amplify your energy instead of draining it. They move with you instead of resisting you. They believe with you instead of doubting you. And because they are aligned with your alignment, they help expand your vision further than you could have alone. That synergy multiplies influence, multiplies opportunities, multiplies results. And it all starts with you choosing to align with yourself fully and committing to that alignment with unshakable conviction. Alignment and conviction also create freedom. When you live aligned, you no longer feel the need to perform for acceptance. When you live with conviction, you no longer dilute your truth out of fear. You show up as you are, and that authenticity liberates you. People feel the difference between someone performing and someone free. Performance might get attention, but freedom gets loyalty. People follow freedom because they crave it for themselves. Your alignment and conviction become proof that freedom is possible, and in witnessing it, they lean closer, not because you convinced them, but because you lived what they desire. This is why some of the most impactful leaders and creators never chased audiences. They didn't bend themselves to fit trends. They didn't beg for followers or force people to stay. They aligned with their truth, stood in it with conviction, and the right people gathered around them naturally. And because those people came by choice, not persuasion, they stayed. They became the foundation for movements that lasted, communities that thrived, and visions that expanded beyond the individual. That is the effortless power of alignment and conviction. It builds something real, something sustainable, something magnetic without force. Be so undeniable that belief becomes inevitable. Most people spend their lives trying to be seen, trying to be heard, trying to be noticed, yet they do it in ways that make them blend in rather than stand out. They talk about their goals, they share their dreams, they explain their intentions, but the truth is that talk doesn't create belief. What creates belief is undeniable evidence, evidence that is so strong, so clear, so real that no one can question it. To be undeniable means you have reached a level where your existence, your results, your presence are the proof. It means you no longer need to ask people to believe in you because your life leaves them no other choice. Undeniability is built through relentless consistency, not the kind of consistency that shows up only when it feels easy, but the kind that continues when it is hard, when the lights are off, when no one is watching. Every repetition, every small action, every moment of discipline stacks proof upon proof. Over time, those small stacks become a mountain no one can ignore. You may not look undeniable in the beginning because in the beginning you are planting seeds, but if you keep watering, keep moving, keep showing up, the growth becomes impossible to deny. People may argue with your words, they may doubt your vision, they may criticize your approach, but when the results are standing tall in front of them, their disbelief crumbles. Belief becomes inevitable not because you forced it, but because reality demands it. Being undeniable is not about perfection, it is about persistence. Perfection is fragile because the first mistake can shatter the illusion. Persistence is powerful because it shows that nothing can stop you. People don't believe in perfection, they believe in resilience. They believe in those who fall and rise again, in those who face resistance and keep moving forward. Every setback you overcome, every challenge you push through, every doubt you silence with action adds to the undeniability of your presence. the more battles you survive, the more undeniable you become, because survival is proof of strength, and strength builds belief. To be undeniable, you must also develop a level of mastery in your craft that sets you apart. When you commit yourself to the process of learning, refining, and evolving, your skill begins to speak louder than your voice ever could. Mastery is its own argument. People respect it. People can't dismiss it. Mastery is the silent force that makes people pay attention even if they wanted to look away. And mastery doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you commit to doing the work again and again long after others have given up. That commitment is what transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary proof. Undeniability also comes from authenticity. Pretending, performing, or imitating may get temporary recognition, but it doesn't create lasting belief. People can feel the difference between someone who is authentic and someone who is playing a role. Authenticity carries a weight that can't be fabricated. When you are fully yourself, unapologetic in your truth, aligned in your actions, people can sense it. They may not agree with everything you do, but they cannot deny the realness of it. Authenticity builds a foundation of trust, and trust is what makes belief stick. The road to undeniability is not easy, which is why so few people achieve it. It requires sacrifice, patience, and the willingness to keep going when others quit. It requires you to endure the seasons when no one believes in you, when your results haven't yet caught up to your effort, when you are still building behind the curtain. But those seasons are not wasted. They are the proving ground. Every time you continue in silence, every time you move without applause, every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are becoming more undeniable. When the results finally show, people will think it happened overnight, but you will know it was built moment by moment, choice by choice, commitment by commitment. When you reach the point of undeniability, everything shifts. You no longer chase validation because validation comes to you. You no longer fight for recognition because recognition becomes unavoidable. The right people, the right opportunities, the right doors begin to open not because you persuaded them, but because your presence, your track record, your undeniable reality leaves no room for doubt. Belief becomes inevitable because belief is the only logical response to what you have built. Undeniability also creates freedom. When you are undeniable, you are no longer controlled by other people's opinions. Their doubt doesn't touch you because doubt cannot erase proof. Their criticism doesn't derail you because criticism cannot erase results. Their disbelief doesn't slow you down because disbelief cannot erase reality. You move with a different kind of confidence, one that doesn't come from ego, but from evidence. Evidence that you've done the work. Walk the path, built the proof. That confidence is not fragile because it isn't based on external applause. It's based on undeniable truth. Belief becomes inevitable when your life carries so much weight that it forces people to shift their perspective. Even those who once doubted will have no choice but to admit the reality in front of them. They may not like you, they may not agree with you, they may even resist you, but they cannot deny what you've accomplished, who you've become, what you represent. And in that moment, belief is no longer something you ask for. It's something that is given, sometimes reluctantly, but always inevitably. Being undeniable doesn't mean everyone will support you. Some will still criticize, some will still resist, some will still try to pull you down. But even in their resistance, they acknowledge your undeniability. Their criticism is proof that you cannot be ignored. Their resistance is proof that you matter. Their attempts to pull you down are proof that you've risen high enough to be noticed. And the very fact that they react at all means you've already won because the undeniable cannot be dismissed. At the core of it, being undeniable is about living in such alignment, with such conviction, with such persistence, that your life itself becomes the evidence. It is about stacking proof upon proof until belief is no longer a choice others have to make. It is the only conclusion they can draw. It is about transcending the need to persuade, the need to convince, the need to beg for support, because the undeniable requires none of that. It simply is. And when you reach that level, you carry a power that cannot be questioned, a presence that cannot be ignored, and a truth that makes belief not optional but inevitable.